Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are listening, and welcome to the first ever Quiz On podcast with me, Alex Mitchell.
And me, Holly Noble.
You forgot your whole spiel. We planned a whole fucking monologue. This bit's staying in, right? This is just to tell you everything you need to know about what this podcast is. We are an hour behind when we should have started recording. I forgot we were recording today, so I'm currently drinking a Monster. I've been caffeine free for 6 months. I've fallen off the wagon. Holly's prepared an entire monologue and completely forgotten to do it. I just said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll edit any bits out." This is 100% staying in. There's absolutely no way.
Oh
Welcome to
my
a professional
god.
podcast record. I'm in a cupboard in my own house. This is, if you ever needed a gauge on how professional we are, this is the level right now. Do you want to do your prepared bit, Holly, or not bother now?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, we might as well. In this podcast, two queer comedians get together every week to discuss a new topic from our perspective. Not that it
Yes,
matters anymore.
no, it's just a fucking disaster already. It doesn't matter. Yeah, each week we take a new topic and we're just going to chat about it from our sort of unique queer perspective. And this week, for our very first episode, our topic is coming out. I mean, how could we start a queer podcast in the first episode not be coming out? Look, some people would view it as a lazy choice, and I would say to them, correct, we're busy people. We do not have time to think about this. We have very sort of different experience of it. I came out when I was 13. I believe, Holly, you came out when
Yeah.
you were a bit older. Yeah, I was only 13. I mean, you came out when you were a bit older, and also we have very different life experience because I'm 24. I'm quite a young guy. Holly is much older than me, and I think it's fair we get that on record. So, Holly, when
That's
did
a
you?
friend right there.
Yeah, 100%. So when did you come out, Holly?
Oh, mine was difficult. So I told people that I was bi. Well, I didn't actually tell anyone really. I just presented a girl to people when I was like 19, having been very, very straight. To the point where like I saw a Facebook status where I was like, "Oh, lesbians," when I was in like year 9 at
Oh
school.
God.
So I was like so far in the closet, and I'd been in a relationship for like 3 years, and then I came out of that. And then there was this girl that I met, and I just kind of presented them to my friends and was like, this is not my friend. But I didn't really know what the situation was. And then people started asking me, like, so are you gay? Like, are you into girls? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just having a good time.
Absolutely fair play, by the way. What a valid answer. Like, it's not.
It was weird because how it happened was I was on a night out and then I just had a drink and then was just like, oh, I think I'm gonna kiss that girl. And then I was like, are you? And I was like having this conversation in my head, like, is this actually gonna happen? And then I did, and then I kind of very quickly went back in the closet because there were some like very weird responses to it where obviously I was 19, so this was 10 years ago. It was a little while ago.
2014, the good old days of,
It was a
of
little
straight
while
Holly
ago.
Noble.
Yeah. You know when people are so straight that it's like you are covering something up, because I was obsessed with men and this carried on. So because of the kind of weird reactions that I had, I was like, yeah, I'm going straight back in that closet. And then had like a series of a series. That sounds so bad, but it was a series of heterosexual relationships then. And I kind of just felt forced into that. I felt that there was this expectation of you kind of look like organically straight, which I look less straight these days, but like certainly back then, no one thought that I quote unquote looked gay. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just go straight back in there and then have some like pretty serious relationships with men. But the whole time I had this experience of like something doesn't feel right. I wish that I could just like live with a female friend forever and like do
Yeah,
everything together.
and I think that's a really valid point you make. Like, I often get it as well. Because, well, you don't look gay. Like, and that's literally like, and that's still a preconception that we live with and have to deal with every day, really.
Mm.
Um, I suppose for me, it's a bit. I'm pansexual, is how I choose to identify. I came out when I was 13 years old, so in 2013, and things, as a child, I didn't have the words to talk about it. Really, I didn't really know. I didn't know what bisexuality was, which is what I initially came out as, until the day I came out. Right, is how I say it because I was and this is an awful window into my life, but I was on a residential with school. We're all in our dual rooms and stuff. And I was like, there were some girls in the year above that were like the cool girls. Like they weren't like the popular ones, but they were cool. They were RE. They were really cool. I was like, these are the ones that I really like. They would always like they were going and seeing like they'd be like, oh yeah, this weekend we're gonna go see the Wombats. And in 2013, that was fucking a big deal, right? Like, you know what I mean? That was the peak of cool. I was like, these guys are cool, right? These are the people I want to hang out with. And so I sat there and literally the truth of the day, I was like, oh, truth. And the question was literally like, oh, are you gay or what's your sexuality? And as any person who would straight would say, I went, I'll say if everyone else says, right? So,
Yeah.
so we literally went on the circle and it was literally straight, 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 straight. And then one of these girls said bisexual. And I literally went, what's that? They explained, kept going on, so came to me and I went, well, I'm bisexual. And that's literally how I came out when I was 13 years old. And I literally
Ooh.
just didn't have the words to talk about it. Like that was part of the issue for me was I didn't understand how to talk about bisexuality or now pansexuality because as kids we just don't have the words to talk about it. And 100% I was pressured into that position to come out. But I'm almost grateful I was because that's I learned who I was almost, in that one sort of circle of friendship. So it was a very sort of strange experience for me and a very, very odd one. It took me ages before I could then talk to anyone else about it, really. And I think that's something that's important to say as well. Is like I don't know who said it, but it's this quote that I love, and it's that you don't come out once. Like we come out every day of our lives.
Every
Like
day.
it's literally, yeah, from the point where it's just like whether it's to a different family member, a different friend, a colleague, a doctor, like I mean, I've seen you do bits on stage, Holly, which I really love, where you talk about, going to a doctor and then being like, "Is there any chance you're pregnant?" And you're like, "Well, I mean, I fucking hope not, but
Yeah.
also that would be impressive." Like,
Yeah. Me and my fiance, we had to come out yesterday to this couple. I'll go into like the details of it because then it's gonna sound like I'm bitching about them, which I'm not. But it's just these assumptions constantly where
yeah.
like we always get asked if we're sisters because we're both blonde and tall.
And is it because they believe that, or is it because that's an easier question than asking, "Are you dating? Are you gay? Are you together?" That's something
Yeah.
I've often experienced. It's often very much just seemed like if I'm with where I was with my ex partner, it was very much seems like, oh, you guys must be like great friends or whatever, and it's like because that was easier than suggesting, are you two dating? And this would be like on a night out after they've watched us be down each other's throats, and they'd still be like, oh, you guys just like great friends. We're like, yeah, purely platonic. Like, what I mean, just because it's
Yeah.
an easier question to ask, I think there's still that social awkwardness around it. I think things are changing and are getting better, but it's just slow. And I also think these things are secular, like where there are periods of time where it's not easy to come out. Not at all. I don't think it's ever easy, but I think there's periods of time where it's the world seems like a brighter, more accepting place, and then 5 years later we seem to regress, and then 5 years later we sort of improve again, and it's always that secular thing, really. I don't think it's when you hear older gay couples talk about how it's so much harder when we were younger and we had to come out. I think it find it more sort of. I don't think it necessarily. Obviously, I wasn't alive or around then, but I think that's not a fair judgment. I think there are periods of time where it gets better and periods of time where it gets worse. And I think right now we're in a period of time where we're in a decent position. We're not as good as we could be, but when I came out in 2013, I think that was a fair and good time. But I think a bit later than that, again, sort of rise of like the political right in this country made it particularly challenging, and so it always sort of comes in circles, really. And I think the rise of transphobia in the last few years has definitely made it harder to come out as well, because the rise of transphobia has has naturally caused for a rise in homophobia, and it has made it more sort of challenging for people to come out, really. And I think when I was coming out, my biggest fear was just that purely I don't really know who I am, and I had no idea how people would react because I've always viewed myself as quite straight presenting, and I often find myself in circles where still stereotypically queer men shouldn't be. I'm a huge I love lots of sport. I'm a huge football fan. I'm a huge rugby fan. Um, and again, that was an idea of coming out into those kind of circles was more challenging because I just didn't know how people would react.
Yeah.
And that I found more sort of difficult. And so there were where my fears were was how would my friends who were, you know, big sort of big personalities, sort of, the lads, all sporty, how would they then see me? And would that change? Would I be seen differently? Um, and so initially I only came out to my female friends or the female or women in my life were the only people I came out to, because that was easier than coming out to men, was what I found. I don't know if you had anything sort of similar to that kind of situation.
Um, not really. I suppose that's a difference in gender.
Yeah.
I do often joke about it on stage that I like integrated myself into a group of straight people in school, but like the truth of it was that there wasn't really any gay people in school. There was a couple, and I definitely befriended them. I think there was two or three, and I definitely gravitated towards them just to kind of be friends with them and not really realize what was going on at the time. The issue for me is like I had a group of girls and there was 10 of us and we'd been on like loads of holidays together and stuff like that. And like I said, because I had kind of forced myself to be as straight as I possibly could be, it was like men obsessed, that I was like, oh my God, are they going to think that I fancy them and all that kind of thing. I was really concerned about that. And none of that happened because I didn't actually come out. Like I just kind of very casually started like, so there's this
Yeah.
girl, and then like I say, I went back in the closet, and then it was actually during lockdown that I was like, oh, I'm gay. But yeah, I basically had to be locked away with my own thoughts for 3 months before I could be like, yeah, do you know what? I never want to touch another
Yeah.
man ever again in my life.
And I don't blame you. Like, absolutely fair play. We're all gross. I
Yeah.
think, like, was that an active choice for you when you say, like, you just slowly sort of introduced them to your partner?
Oh.
Was that an active choice? Was it just where it's like, I don't want to come out, I'd rather do it this way? Or was it just natural that was just the way to do it?
I was going through a bit of a crazy time in my life. Like my mental health was in the gutter, and I was doing a lot of crazy things. So I think during that time, people were like, "It's just another crazy thing that crazy Holly does." Like that. That's just
God.
she's
Yeah.
just a bit off the rails at the minute, and like that kind of thing. So it was almost just like, "Oh, you're definitely just experimenting, and
The
it's nothing."
classic, it's just a phase. Yeah.
Exactly that. But then
Yeah.
that made me, but I was like, yeah, it probably is that. So that's when I was
Yeah.
like, right, yeah, I need to, this isn't what, and I wish that I'd have been given the opportunity to be able to explore that more and had the confidence as well to think, no, actually, I don't think that that is the case. And I don't need to settle down with a man. I don't need to be with a man to be accepted. And then I could have then like lived who I actually was from that point, but I it wasn't a choice in the beginning that I really sat down and was like, right, I'm going to be really careful about how I do this. It just so happened that it all just progressed that way, and then I was like, no, you don't. And then over time as well, in between having these relationships with men, I would like go on Tinder or something and like start dating a girl, and then proper internalized homophobia would just creep in, and I'd be like, oh my God, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gay. Like that is no, that's not me. Just properly convincing myself. And like I say, it took me being locked away with my own thoughts to be like, yeah, do you know what? Being straight isn't for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where like I got a bit of heat from this recently because an old interview got unearthed where I was quoted in this interview saying sometimes I still wish, or not wish, but sometimes I still think about if I was straight and what my because my life would be easier. Aspects of my life would
Mm.
be easier. And I got a bit of heat of that recently because that interview got dug up. But I mean, that was at a time when I was sort of very sort of newer in comedy. I was probably 21, 22 years old, and I still wasn't that sure of myself, to be fair. It's taken me sort of 10 years since coming out to be like, this is who I am, and I'm okay with that. And it's taken me doing some quite, crazy things to be able to do that. I did, I appeared on the telly last year, and that was a whole thing where that for me was a real moment for me stepping towards that acceptance of who I was,
Mm.
which I wasn't expecting, but it was very much like I had to go on telly and I was going to talk about it because it does make up, a fair bit of my stand up because I think best stand up is based on life experience. So I talk about it quite a bit. And so when you have to go out on stage, not just to thousands of people as an audience, but to millions watching at home, it then becomes very much like if I don't accept that this is who I am, people are going to view it as a gimmick rather than me being like, no, no, this is who I am and this is who I want to be. But that took 10 years, 10 plus years to actually get to that point in my life where I was comfortable with that. And I also think it took that amount of time to just understand my sexuality. I think that's one of the things with pansexuality and bisexuality is that we just, again, it's just not, it's not spoken about enough. It's still so taboo in terms of like, so when we're kids and when we're growing up with it, we just don't understand what it actually means because we're always taught, or when I was at school, queer sex education was improving. It still was terrible. It still is terrible. I just finished being a teacher. I was a teacher for 3 years before I did this professionally. And let me tell you, queer sex education has not improved. But it's like, it was very much, even when I was at school, it was still taught that you are with a man or you are with a woman, and that's it. And they, even if you are a man, you can be with a man. That's fine. But it was never taught that you could like both, or you could like any one of however anyone identifies. It was never taught that that's okay. It always was seen as you have to be with one or the other, and you have to make your mind up, and you have to do it now. And you're only 14, but make that decision. Like with how
Yeah.
it was sort of, it was how it sort of was presented to us. I think that made it really sort of challenging. I think they were my sort of biggest fears was just that I just didn't understand who I was, and if I was, sort of allowed in inverted commas, because we just weren't presented on screen or in the media. And also, there's that whole thing of when you want, I've wanted to do comedy for years. I've wanted to do it since I was that age, that when you see back in the day when you were watching telly, like even now, I can only think of one time I've seen more than one gay person on the telly at once. Um, and other than, Drag Race and things like that. And back in the day as well, we were seen as we were ticking a box and we'll have one of them, so one of the first times I remember was there's an episode of 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown where Alan Carr and Tom Allen were on a team together. And that for me was like I was probably 16, 17, but that was the first time I remember seeing two queer men on the same show at the same time and it being presented as this is funny. Like this isn't a gimmick. These are just two very funny, talented people who deserve to be here. Um, and so when you want to do this, you're like, do I have to lean into my sexuality being a gimmick? Do I have to lean into it being an angle, rather than it just being who I am? And there's still time like I would, last night I did a gig which was all queer comics, and we were describing, we're all queer comedians. And it's like I would love to eventually get to a point where I'm not a queer comedian, I'm just a comedian. Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
great. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah, I think that biphobia is a massive issue that is not talked about enough. The funny thing for me that I've realised since coming out as gay is that because I've been in relationships with men, people refer to me as bi. So people that knew me before, even though I've
Yeah.
explicitly say every time that I got on stage, I am a lesbian, like I am gay, I'm marrying a woman, like I don't have any attraction to men, and I haven't done for a few years. That you like it just kind of switched overnight, and I was like, do you know what? That's not who I am. I'd been forcing myself down that road to be bi, and that's not what I am. Um, People will literally say like Holly's bi, and I'm like, I'm not. Like, where are you getting that? Because I've been,
Yeah,
and this is people that I know as well. This is like friends or like, people that I know
yeah,
have decided that for me and then tell other people that. And it's like, what are you talking about?
yeah. And I think everyone's journey with that is different. Like you said, for like some people know it from the beginning. Like I quite comfortably say I've known what about my sexuality since I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. I just didn't have a word for it. Whereas
Yeah.
other people do need that lived experience to understand it, and that's okay. There's no issue with either side of that. Both of those things are absolutely valid and fair reasons. And I think really, I think what's important to say, I think we sort of spent 10 minutes talking about the sort of about it, and I'm cautious that I've sounded quite negative. And what I would say is that my entire experience really now is that the coming out experience is tough, but it's incredibly rewarding. Like would be my,
Mm,
it's I know who I am, and I know who accepts me for who I am, and I definitely lost friends over it when I was a teenager, and I came out, but I was pushed into coming out, I was bullied into coming out, that sort of just, which is a story that happens a lot, and I definitely lost friends over it then. But I think really, do I want those people in my life anyway? Like even if I was
precisely.
straight, would I want those kind of people in my life? No. So
Yeah.
I think I occasionally come across quite negative when I talk about it, but genuinely it's an incredibly rewarding thing, and it's a big challenging thing to do, is to come out and to talk about it. And if anyone's listening to this who is at that stage where they're thinking about coming out and they want to talk about it is an incredibly scary thing to do. It can be an incredibly scary thing to do. But I think life is about those scary moments and what you make out of them. Because when you've done it, even if some of the worst things you're imagining do happen and people reject you because of it, I think if you can really strip it back, do you want those people in your life anyway? And that is, of course, really challenging and really awful and really upsetting when people reject you because of it. And it does take time. It takes a long time to be able to finally accept that, but you will get there. And I think it's a lot more important to know and understand yourself than it is to have that approval from other people. Even though a lot of the time it will feel like the approval is the better thing. You know what I mean?
I didn't lose anyone that I would want in my life now. I didn't lose many people, but the people that I did lose, you may consider as significant, and they are not people that I regret losing at all. Because ultimately, if people in your life that are not having sex with you care about who you are having sex with, they need a job. Like they need a
Yeah,
hobby.
100%.
They need
Yeah,
their own thing to do. Like nobody should care about who I am in love with, who I share a bed with. That's on them. That is not on me. And if that's the issue that they have, then they need a hobby.
yeah, of course. I think like what I think really important as well to say, and to sort of the other side of that, is what is, again, from I'm putting it into a perspective of sport really, because I'm at a point where I've seen over the last few days there's a couple of sports people have come out talking about their sexuality, but the same when any celebrity comes out, comments on social media from people are either horrible or people saying, why do they feel the need to tell us? And it's like those people saying, why do they feel the need to tell us? It's just your business. You shouldn't need to tell us. But you are part of the fucking problem. Janet from Norwich, the reason we feel we need to come out and the reason to do it is to hopefully sort of it, show other people that it's okay and that it's completely right and it's okay. Like I saw a thing the other day. There's a professional men's tennis player who's come out, and he's the first tennis player while still professionally playing to have come out. And the majority of comments was, "But why does he feel the need to tell us? Because of you. You are the reason he feels that he does. Because he wants to show people that actually being gay and a tennis player is okay. Like, and it's not. And so when you're saying, why do you need to tell us? It's because you're trying to show people that it's okay. And so you shouldn't have to not hide it, but you shouldn't have to feel like you can't play tennis because you are gay. Like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? And those people, that's not active homophobia. But for me, that's just as damaging. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not, why would anyone then go, oh yeah, why would anyone look at that and go, oh yeah, I now feel like I can come out? Or why would anyone look at that and go, I now feel like I can play whatever sport I want to do or be in whatever industry I want to do, and that'd be fine. And I don't have to tell anyone about it because unfortunately that's not how it works. We have to tell everybody about it. It's the way life works.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, we have to come out every single day of our lives. It's not something we can just keep quiet forever. It doesn't work like that. And so they're the kind of things that really almost annoy me at the minute more than just active homophobia, because it's like, you're trying to present as this wonderfully accepting person, but going, but why do they need to tell us? I'm fine with it, but why do they need to tell us? It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's part of the problem, because you're an enabler. You're not actively being homophobic, but you're enabling these people to still keep us in the dark and keep us quiet. And that's what annoys me. I don't think people realize they do it. I don't think it's an active decision, but it's incredibly, incredibly damaging. And I find that so frustrating.
I did this thing on TikTok for Pride Month, and oh my goodness me, did that cause some issues. I don't know if you saw it, but basically there were companies who, those companies that just like slap a pride flag over their logo and they're like, we support LGBT, and it's like, no, you don't.
My favorite thing in the world was when M&S released the LGBT sandwich. Oh my God, it was absolutely incredible. Like, well, that you just stopped conversion therapy by throwing together a sandwich. Cheers, lads. Like, it was just absolutely mad.
Like, I'd prefer that you don't put a rainbow anywhere to do with anything, and just donate to LGBT charities. Like, do something like that. We couldn't care less about your flag. Like, leave the flag away.
It's virtue signaling, isn't it? Yeah, it's virtue signaling at the end of the day. Actually be active and do something about it.
I was like, I know what I'll do. This is a really good idea. All those companies that claim this, I will call them and ask them something and include the quote, my partner, and see what they assume. And it wasn't small businesses or anything like that. These were big businesses that I called, and it caused quite the stir on social media because people were like, this is ridiculous. And a lot of people were actually really supportive of it. And like, the whole point is, people were saying like, why couldn't you say my girlfriend? I said, because she's my fiance. So if I say fiance, what do you assume? Why couldn't you say her name? Well, her name is Sam. Like, do you know, like,
yeah, you shouldn't have had to say it.
Her name isn't Sam, but like, say she has a gender neutral name. So like, it's that assumption. Unfortunately, in psychology, in our brains, we make assumptions to survive. If we don't make assumptions, we cannot survive. Like, we have to assume things. We have to go on learned behavior. So that assumption is never going to go away. But I think that we can definitely move towards just asking, and we make it easy for ourselves, because my point in that video was, in normal day-to-day life, I would have used a term that they wouldn't have assumed. But I shouldn't have to do that, because that means that I have to aid them, but they are unable to consider that because I have a female voice, allegedly on the phone, like, what they're assuming is a female voice on the phone, that they then think, oh, yes, your partner must be male. No.
I think we're at a point where we should probably start wrapping up. And I think the perfect way to end this really would be if we had any advice for anybody who was sort of going through that phase where they're thinking about coming out now. And I mean, for me, my advice would simply be some of the best things in life are terrifying, and it can be a really, really scary point. But the people who love you will continue to love you. That's the truth about it. The people who love you will continue to love you. And I think that's summed up by the fact it took me probably 10 years to come out to my entire family. Right. I started with my sister was the first person told, then I told my mum. Eventually I moved up and told my dad. And like it took that amount of time. Because it was so scary and I felt like I had to break it up. But in every single part of that journey has been me getting closer to accepting who I am and living a happier life and a more fulfilled life, and one where I'm more comfortable with who I am, and waking up and being okay with who I am is more important than any other person in the world. And so that would be my advice, is that it's going to seem scary, but I promise you, it's worth it in every possible way. That would be my advice. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Holly.
I think all I would say from my own experience is I was so scared for so long, thinking about what would happen. And my mum means the most to me in the world. And I was so scared specifically about what she would think and what she would do. And yesterday I went to the Christmas market with my fiance, and she bought croc pins matching for her and my mum. And my mum was almost in tears when she gave her them because of how much she loves her. I think just having the ability to be yourself is what's needed. And if anyone cares who you're lying in bed with at night, that's their problem, not yours.
100%. I think that is the perfect point to end. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week with another episode of Queers On. In the meantime, you can follow us both on social media. I'm at Alex Mitchell Comedy. Holly is
Whole Noble Comedy.
easy peasy. I'm also on tour, and you can get tickets for that from alexmitchellcomedy.co.uk. It's my first tour. It's my first show. It's called Alex Mitchell Ticks Towards Perfection. I'll be honest, the title came before anything else. But it would be lovely to see you there as well. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time on the Queers On podcast.
Thank you.